Hello again. Um, Again, another story that I've for today. This one though, a lot more serious, and I'm afraid has much darker implications than the other ones that I've recently read out. I'll just get straight to it. This is just absolutely disgusting. A violent rapist from Folkestone who claimed to have HIV is jailed for attack in Ashford alleyway. A violent rapist who repeatedly assaulted a woman in a town centre alleyway and then claimed to have HIV has been locked up. Haftum Etebrake, 19, subjected his prone victim. For those who don't know what that means, prone, it's led down. His prone victim to a sustained attack after she brushed off his advances at the Ashford Club, Ashford, in July last year. Etta Barrack of Folkestone, well, he's not really of Folkestone, is he, with that name, waited for her to be alone before overpowering her in a nearby bin store, jurors heard at Canterbury Crown Court in April. Following his arrest, the Eritrean national, there we go. So he's not of Folkestone, he's of Eritrea. He's somebody who shouldn't be in this country. I doubt very much that this individual is either a doctor or an engineer or even qualified to handle a broomstick. More than likely, he's come over, I would say, on a boat or in the back of a wagon and then lied about being a victim. Let's read the rest of the article and find out. I've no evidence for that. That is just purely me speculating. Because it's got to the point now where you see these stories that often that it just becomes tiresomely predictable. Following his arrest, the Eritrean national would claim to be HIV positive, meaning his victim had to undergo months of medical examinations. The same court was told yesterday. I mean, that is just awful. Not only has he, I guess, raped this woman, or at the very least seriously sexually assaulted her, but also given her this mental torment and possibly given her a lifelong condition if she's HIV positive. Now, I've said this before in other videos, and I mean this wholeheartedly, and I'm not just saying this for shock value or effect. We genuinely, for cases like this, need to bring back flogging and the death penalty. This individual, if he was not to be executed, at the very least needs to be flogged on top of his prison sentence, and flogged to within an inch of his life with a cat o' nine tails, like we used to do. This is just barbaric. What this person's done. Absolutely, there is no excuse for this at all. A full example needs to be made of him, and then once he's been flogged, once he's done his time in prison, then he can get sent back to Eritrea where he belongs. He is not one of ours. Why are we allowing the refuse of the rest of the world to set up camp in our country and abuse our own citizens? This is the problem with the friend-enemy distinction that I keep mentioning in all of our videos. The far-left activists will jump all over him as some sort of a victim because people like him are useful to the cause, to pushing their ideology and gaining traction for their political ideology. The far left, you cannot give them an inch. You cannot give them anything. And if they call you names, call you anything, just go, yep, if you think I'm that, then I'm that. Just, there's no point even trying to negotiate with them. We just need to crush them. They are not our friends. They're not working with us. What they want and their vision is not in the direction of ours. They are completely and utterly opposed to our civilization and our way of life. And we have to start treating them like the enemies that they actually are. They are fifth columnists and seditionists. And they are allowing our people to literally be raped. Literally be raped. Just like with the Rotherham, Rochdale and all the other working class towns where girls on an industrial scale were raped by predominantly Pakistani, Bangladeshi Muslim rape gangs. Not exclusively, obviously, because some people are like, why aren't you saying that? There was this one case where there was one white man involved in it who was called Steve and he was a Christian. Yeah, we all know that there's exceptions, right? We all know that. Anyway, back to it. Etta Barrack denied 3 counts of rape, but jurors convicted him unanimously following a trial where his victim told of the violence she had suffered at his hands. He pushed me down because I was quite drunk. I fell on my bottom and hit my head on a pipe on the wall, said the police interview played to jurors. Now, I'm not victim blaming here. Well, I'm going to say, because I've got 3 daughters myself, this is the problem with what society and feminism has done, is unfortunately now we have women going out and getting so drunk that they can't, that they're turning themselves into targets. And I'm not saying that women should be targeted, and I'm not saying that women shouldn't be allowed to get drunk. Quite the opposite. the trouble is though, is that predators, you've got to think of it like if you watch a documentary, say lions in Africa, they won't go for the fittest, strongest, healthiest, largest antelope. They'll go for the sick one. They'll go for the weak one. They'll go for the one with the limp or the baby one. The one that has got the proverbial target painted on it because it's easier for them to hit. Well, I'm sorry to tell you this, but if you're inebriated, you can't walk straight, you're slurring your words, and unfortunately you're wearing like sexually provocative clothing, you have, unfortunately, whether intending to or not, put a target on your back. Now I know some people are going to find that opinion rather controversial, but it's a fact. It's just a basic fact that these predatory men will look at you as an easy target, and once they've set eyes on you and they've got you isolated from other people, they are going to then do what they want with you. And that is just the sad reality of it. Unfortunately, expectations versus reality are not always the same thing. And reality has a habit of coming crashing down on people quickly, unfortunately. Again, I'm not victim blaming. Women should be allowed to go out and do what they want. In the same way that men should be able to go out on a night out, mind their own business and not get attacked by other men for no reason other than they happen to glance in their direction and the other man takes umbrage at it. But unfortunately, it's a reality of going out on a night out. It's just, the world isn't perfect. And unfortunately, a lot of people are very flawed individuals, some flawed to the point of being criminally flawed. And that is just the reality of life, I'm afraid. I got up and I started realising what had happened in those few seconds. Let's open up the rest of the page. I had to press the read on button. I felt like forever, but really fast at the same time. Yeah, that's your adrenaline kicking in. That it's awful for. I couldn't get away because I was a little bit too drunk and not balanced, and he was still holding me. I mean, the being drunk's part of it as well, but there's also the physical reality of men being stronger than women, and again, that is just a reality. This is where women are being lied to as well currently, especially young women, where they're seeing all this media where in films on TV where you have these boss babes who are fighting off all these men, roundhouse kicking them, throwing them over the shoulders, everything else. And unfortunately, that's just not reality. Men are, and I do Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and when I'm what's called rolling, which is grappling with the females, especially those that I can, even with the ones who are a lot better than me. If I want to, I can just get hold of them, grip them, and basically put them into like an anaconda death grip, and there's nothing they can do. But I don't do that because I don't learn anything. So we go through the techniques together. Now, don't get me wrong. That's, I mean, it's quite complicated to explain. I mean, there's a lot that especially women who are incredibly talented at it, they can still find, to a certain degree, ways around that. But it gets to a point where strength does overcome technique. There's nothing you can do about it. Now, obviously, if I start then trying to do other things, they'll counter me straight away and they'll slip underneath me and then flip around onto me back and choke me out, whatever, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. That's the training. I'm humble enough to admit that they're more technically better than me, right? But it's like if you try fighting the world's strongest man, it doesn't matter how much technique you try and use against him, you're just physically not going to be able to budge his body. You're physically not going to be able to put an armbar on him because he's just so much stronger than your entire body, no matter how perfect your technique is. Now, that's obviously extrapolating to the nth degree. But, what I mean? This woman most likely doesn't train martial arts. This man most likely doesn't train martial arts. So really, it comes down to who's bigger and stronger is generally going to be there's no one who succeeds. And unfortunately for women, that's generally men. Jurors heard the woman shunned Etabarik's advances on the dance floor moments before he followed her into the town centre alleyway. Typical predator. Again, not to victim blame, but she should have got a taxi. She should have got a taxi home. Or she shouldn't have gone on her own either. Safety in numbers, ladies. It's a sad reality, but, especially when you're in these, it's bad enough with people, and I don't just mean Indigenous Britons, but anybody who's born in this country and raised with British sensibilities. We still have plenty of criminals here who are willing to do criminal activity. But when you talk about these people who are coming from these third world countries, they have absolutely no qualms about engaging in these activities because in them countries that's just fine and accepted and normal. If women are walking around on their own, it's their own fault. Should be with men. That's their attitude. The sex offender then subjected the woman, who must remain anonymous for legal reasons, to 3 acts of rape. Then it's got quotation marks here. Sometimes I open my eyes and I'm surrounded by my own sweat. Close quotes. Opening the prosecution's case, Dominic Colony said this defendant walked after her, briefly engaged in conversation, and walked with her to the alleyway. And while she was in that alleyway, he approached her, took hold of her, and raped her. After she repeated the allegation at a later date, police attended the nightclub to obtain CCTV. The court heard yesterday Etta Barrack told the police they had consensual sex, which he maintained throughout the trial and claimed to be HIV positive. While being placed into custody, he said he was HIV positive. Thereafter, he refused to answer questions in relation to that. Because of the delay in his arrest, it meant it was too late to give the victim any medication, Mr. Connolly explained. The court heard physical examinations conducted while Etta Barrack was held on remand revealed his test negative of the virus. So that sounds like he was lying, but they still have to test her just in case, because those tests could have been wrong, showing the negative. He had also sought to clarify that he was not HIV positive during the initial police interview. His lawyer said, yesterday, Etta Barrack's victim watched from the public gallery as the rapist learned his fate. He has had a very troubled upbringing. Well, I don't care how troubled his upbringing is. There's no excuse for that. It's just maddening. It's just maddening that what is this person doing in our country? He literally brings nothing to the country. He brings nothing positive. All he's done is rapes a woman 3 times. And now he's going to go to prison and he'll come out and he'll be given a council house. And he'll be on benefits for the rest of his life and then get a pension. What is the actual point of that human being in our country? None whatsoever. She told of her anxiety while awaiting the result of repeated HIV screening tests conducted over a duration of around 3 months. There's someone else, guys, who might be watching this, and I'm not accusing this woman at all, and this is no reflection on her, but there has been many, many cases in the past, over 10 years sort of young men being accused of engaging in unconsensual sexual activity. And luckily for them, there's been camera footage proving otherwise. And what I would say is, if you are going to engage in, and I don't recommend that you engage in one night stands and things like that, but if you are going to do that, I would keep quiet about it. As in, I don't mean don't talk to her about it, and don't be like sneaky and about it, but don't go around bragging about it, because women are very, very conscious of the reputation and reputational damage. And if you go around telling everybody that you've been sleeping with women and they don't like it, and you make them feel like a prostitute, they may very well accuse you of engaging in unconsensual sex, simply to protect their own reputation, simply because there is almost no consequential damage to a woman to do that to you. And obviously, because I was saying before about women I'm saying this now because before I was saying about women being careful about going out how they dressed and getting drunk. Well, it's just as risky for men as well in some regards. If you make a woman feel like her reputation is being destroyed, she may feel like she wants to destroy you. And a very easy way for a woman to do that is to falsely accuse you of engaging in improper activities. And if you've no way to back that up, that could, although you may not go to prison, that could ruin the rest of your life. That will show up on DBS checks. It could prevent you from getting certain types of employment, even though you don't have a criminal record. Or you could end up with you going to prison, even if you both did consent to it. So be very, very, very careful about bragging about these things. There's a reason why our ancestors used to keep a lot of things private. Keep their affairs private. But again, so make sure you take people to public places with cameras. Make sure everything is glaringly obvious, and like I say, don't go around bragging about it afterwards. That is the worst thing you can do in this day and age, especially post Me Too. And she told of her anxiety while awaiting the results of repeated HIV screening tests conducted over the duration of around 3 months. That's just awful for her. Honestly, my heart bleeds for this woman. That is absolutely terrible. And like I say, I've got 3 daughters myself, so I can't imagine what her parents are going through as well. It's just terrible. It's absolute emotional torture. And again, it's a reason why that man should be flogged and deported. And she described suffering suicidal thoughts, post-traumatic stress disorder, and night terrors in the wake of the attack. Yeah, I'm absolutely not surprised about that. It's absolutely terrible what's happened to this woman. Absolutely terrible. Some days I can't move. I can't be motivated to go to work. Some days I stay in bed staring at the ceiling thinking about what happened. I don't ever seem to feel normal. I get sad, I get angry. I have no idea how to control these feelings, she said. Feeling this misery and despair causes a depression I haven't felt before. Tragic. Absolute. This woman's life has been ruined. Hopefully, in time, I'm not saying she'll get over it, but time is a healer. So hopefully in time she will at least be able to get some sort of normalcy back in her life. But unfortunately for her, this may be something that lasts for the rest of her life, that she may never ever be able to actually fully get over. And this may prevent her being able to form a proper relationship and from having children and starting her own family. I hope that doesn't happen to her. And I hope she does move on from this and start a family and lives a very happy life. But my goodness, it's just awful. Sometimes I open my eyes and I'm surrounded by my own sweat. She continued in the statement read out in court. I worry about going out, about drinking or staying out late. I don't really do that anymore. No, I don't blame her. I really don't blame her. And really, I think this woman should be advocating to other women to be very careful about the risks of going out drinking and getting too drunk. And it's the sad reality, especially now with mass immigration, unfortunately, it's from people who come from actual patriarchal societies where women are viewed as property. I don't trust people anymore, and I don't even know where to begin trusting people. Yep, but don't blame you, love. It's sad. I honestly thought that was it for me. A life with disease because of a man who felt he had the right to take away my right to say no. I was so scared. Well, it's not that he feels he has the right to take away your right to say no. It's that he doesn't even recognise that you have the ability or right to say no. He comes from a place where might makes right, and that's the end of it, where men are above women. So it's totally two civilizational ideologies colliding. And this is what people in the West don't get, that we're inviting people into our country to live here they don't even hold the same views on society that we hold. Like everything, like, yeah, you might boil things down to real basic ideas. Like they might say, I don't know, children have a right to education. We can all agree on that. Most people around the world. But then define what you mean by education. And what we would call education and what this person or its people in Eritrea would call education may not necessarily look the same at all, or anywhere even close enough. You might look at what they call education and not even recognise it as education, as is a basic example. Handing down a 10-year sentence inside a young offender, he'll be out in 5 years. Outside a Young Offenders Institute, Judge Simon James said Etta Barrett claimed to be HIV positive was an aggravating feature in the case. And the reason why I say he'll be out in 10 years is because that's how sentencing works in this country. Half the sentence is a suspended sentence. So this is why you always see in the news, such and such a person was released after 5 years, even though he was sentenced to 10 years or 15 years. And people are up in arms about it, but that's actually how sentencing works in this country. So you get half your sentence as a suspended sentence, as standard. He was a stranger to you, and it is clear she had rebuffed your interest while inside the club. This is the judge speaking. She was obviously very drunk, and you obviously took advantage of that vulnerability on what was, in my judgment, a prolonged, sustained and brutal attack committed at night in a public place, he added. Well, yeah, that's it. She was, like the judge said, very drunk. So, and again, I'm not wanting to victim blame here. I'm just pointing out the reality of it, which is if you get yourself really drunk, you're making yourself a target. It's the same reason why you can't go into a tattoo parlour in the UK and get a tattoo, because you can't make decisions properly, or you can't apply for a mortgage, or you can't sign up to the army. I know that one from personal experience, by the way. When I first tried joining the army, I went in blind drunk. They turned me away. He had a very troubled upbringing. I don't care, she continued. He was born in Eritrea, one of 6 siblings, the youngest of his family. His father, it seems, died as a result of political unrest in Eritrea. I don't care. I genuinely don't care about how bad his upbringing was. That does not excuse that kind of behaviour at all. Not at all. Not one single iota. He is fully responsible for his actions. 110%. That is how our society and our civilization has managed to get to where it is today, by having them sort of ideas and accepting those sorts of things, not by allowing people to have weak excuses for bad behaviour. Sorry, get him deported. He had some schooling, a primary education up to grade 4, when a family crisis necessitated his absence from school to help his mother with chores, fetching water from a well. I don't care. She said Etabarrett claimed he grew up in abject poverty and fled to the UK to avoid being conscripted in the army. Yeah, there we go. There we go. I said there would be a rubbish reason as to why he came over here, because he didn't want to do his national service. What a crock of poo-poo. Appearing in the dock with the aid of an why has he got an interpreter? If he can't speak English, he clearly can speak English, because he was trying to interact with this woman in a nightclub and she turned him down. So I think that's him playing the game, which people have a tendency to do from these sorts of countries. Of Pavilion Road remained emotionless throughout the sentencing hearing. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. He will remain on the sex offenders register indefinitely. Well, he should be deported. Meanwhile, the Home Office will consider his removal. Well, we know that's not going to happen, don't we? Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. I'm not going to carry on talking about that, because I think the story speaks for itself. So if you've appreciated me sharing that story with you and giving my views on it, please like, subscribe, put a comment below. I'll put a link to the article below. Please visit the site for the traffic on their website and for their advertising revenue, as you've had the good enough grace to this point to listen to the whole article. Thanks for coming, and take care.